Okay, so we're broadcasting live now.
Okay. You want to wait a minute, or?
If you want, sure.
Okay.
Can
Just somebody straggles in. Alright. Give him a couple minutes.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
You may be planning to cover this, I don't know, but I'm just curious because it says photographer and videographer. Do you shoot stills and video, or do you get stills off the video?
I always like to joke about this. One of the people that I work with, they said, "Well, you've got two hands, what's your problem?" That was kind of hard to do. I do both. 90% of what I do is videography now, but I'm shooting more and more photo because we just don't have the staff. Every now and then there'll be a photographer from the paper that'll be at the same event, but I'm often asked to get video and photos. And sometimes it's really, really difficult because I'm after peak emotion, peak action, peak slices in time. And you got the video camera going on, and I wish I had the still camera. Or you got the still camera, and you wish you had the video camera. So I'm always,
Is the video good enough you can take stills out?
it's okay if you run it, this big in the paper.
Yeah.
The resolution is not the greatest. It starts to fall apart after you blow up, a couple, 2 or 3 columns. Depends on the light. In a darker light situation like in here is worse than if I were to go out on a bright sunny day. But I adapt and just innovate and try to overcome. So, yeah. Hey, how are you? I'm Doug.
I'm Roger.
Hi, Roger. Thanks for coming. Appreciate it. Well, you want to get started?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Go ahead and introduce yourself.
Well, my name is Doug Bauman. I'm with the Oakland Press. I've been there for decades, it seems. Well, it has been decades. And I'm a photojournalist over 40 years. I shot still photography for all that time. And then the internet came along. And I don't know about you, but it's changed everybody's life, including mine. The Oakland Press handed me a video camera 4 or 5 years ago, 6 years ago, and asked me to head up their video internet production and operations. Today we post videos from all different kinds of stories on our internet site. We live stream news events from time to time. Excuse me. And we also put together a daily, Monday through Friday, about a 6-8 minute news at noon internet broadcast from events that may have happened earlier that day or events that happened the day before. Come on in.
Sorry about that.
Oh, that's all right. Come on in. I'm Doug, photographer with the Oakland Press.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming.
This is my son.
What I want to talk to you about today is multifaceted here, but primarily some of the fundamental rules in photography, and I've broken it up into several different categories. First of all, is the rule of thirds, where typically you want to break up a photograph into thirds, vertically or horizontally. And I'll show you some examples of that in a second. You want to keep your horizon straight. I can't tell you how many times you look at a photograph of any different scene and the horizon is slightly tilted. It just doesn't, it's not pleasing to the eye. Fill your frame with your subject matter. If I'm taking a photograph of the gentleman in the back of the room here, I don't want to see all this extraneous stuff around him. I want to zoom in on his head and shoulders. Get in tight, fill the frame. Use a fill flash if necessary. If you're in a, well, for example, today outside is nice and bright and sunny, and if you've got a lot of hard shadows, just pop a little flash to fill in that area. It just warms the picture up. It creates a more pleasing look, better composition with the rule of thirds, and for heaven's sakes, try to get the living element, try to get the human element if possible in your photographs. Whether it's, it may be for advertising, you don't want to show an empty showroom or a store with no one in it. You want shoppers in there. Recently we had a video for advertising at the paper where we were showing a showroom of automobiles, and there was nobody in the showroom, no one looking at cars. You put that human element in there, and it just adds so much more to the video, or to the photo for that matter. If it's news or feature, adding that living element can just brings more to the photograph. Now, certainly it's not necessary in every photograph or every video, but it does give the viewer perspective of size and relationship to their environment. And I've got some examples here of what I'm trying to talk about. Here we're talking about the rule of thirds, how I've kind of broken this picture up into thirds. And I think this was a story about this woman gardener who had a beautiful garden of tulips. It was early spring, and we went out and just did a story on her and her beautiful garden. Punchki Day is a big deal up in Oakland County, at least. I don't know about around here, but we went to a local donut shop where this guy makes punchkis. And here, once again, using kind of the rule of thirds here, where it just it creates better composition. It's easier to look at. The human element, the rule of thirds. Again, I've kind of broke this up into, here's my hand here, 1/3 and 2/3. And I've tried to create the human element. And I've filled the picture, I've filled the frame with the subject matter. I didn't have these guys way off in the distance with a lot of extraneous things around it. I've moved in tight to tell the story. I believe I was in a dog show one time, and I had to come away with some sort of a feature picture. So this is what I came up with. Again, the human element, the living element, the rule of thirds again. Here's my hand. So that's what I'm talking about when I mention the rule of thirds, the human element. It doesn't always have to have a human being. It could be just a pretty picture. We've got the living element in this, and it just kind of told the story of an early spring day. The sun was right on the horizon, just coming up at dawn. For heaven's sakes, if you have something more than a point and shoot, please get the camera off auto and learn the physics of the camera. I can't tell you how many times I'm out either on vacation or out shooting whatever, and I see photographers walking around with $600, $800, $1,500, $2,500 camera bodies that have no clue what they're doing. No clue whatsoever. And by getting the camera off of auto and using manual settings, you're going to learn a lot about the physics of a camera. How many here understand the working relationships of the f-stop, the shutter speed, and the ISO or ASA? Does everybody understand those relationships? They really are quite fundamental in that if you look at a camera with shutter speeds on it, basically moving from one shutter speed to another, you're either doubling the speed or you're cutting in half the speed. For example, if you move from 1/25 of a second, that's 1/125, that's a very short period of time, versus 1/250th of a second, that's basically half the speed. You went from 125 to 250. You've cut the amount of time that the shutter is open in half. Okay. Likewise, if you go from 1/250th to 1/25th of a second, you've basically doubled that time. Is that understandable? Do you understand that concept. All the other shutter speeds are basically the same. If you move from 1/25th to a 60th, it's approximately twice the speed, twice the amount of time that the shutter is open. The same concept applies to the ASA or the ISO. They're both, it's a synonymous term. That is the f-stop, or excuse me, the ISO is the sensitivity that the camera has to the amount of light that goes through the lens. When you go from, for example, 400 ISO to 800 ISO, you have doubled the sensitivity of the light coming through the lens. Likewise, if you go, for example, from 800 ISO to 400 ISO, you've cut in half the sensitivity of the light coming through the lens. So by using shutter speed and ISO, those two relationships work together. The same principle is also apparent when you use the f-stop. And the f-stop, again, is doubling and halving the amount of light that comes through the lens. So those three elements of a camera, if you understand their working relationship, you can use all three to control the images that you want. Yes, sir?
And f-stop, that's the aperture on modern
F-stop,
cameras.
f-stop, let me try to illustrate it like this. F-stop is the amount of light, let's say I have a lens this big around, and there's a diaphragm in the lens that opens and closes. And at its widest aperture, you're going to get more light through that lens than you would if that aperture was very, very small. And every f-stop that you move from, it's a logarithmic function, so don't look at the numbers as doubling and halving. If you were to go from, for example, f5.6 to f8, what you've effectively done is cut the light in half. No, excuse me, if you go from 5.6 to f8, you cut the light in half. At 5.6, your aperture might be this big. At f8, it's going to be a little bit smaller, and it cuts the light in half exactly. If you go from f8 to 5.6, you've doubled the light. Okay? So, doubling and halving the f-stop, doubling and halving the shutter speed, and doubling and halving the ISO, you can use all three of those to control and manipulate what you see in your photograph. How many of you have seen, I know you all have, an SI cover of a football player or a baseball player or anything where peak action is just an unbelievable photograph. Maybe a tight end is catching the ball on his fingertips, and that person is just tack sharp. But everything from maybe 1 foot beyond him to infinity is just obliterated. Are you familiar with a photograph like that?
Yeah.
That is done by using an f-stop at its widest aperture, f2.8 or f1.8, whatever the widest aperture on the lens is. If I were to take a photograph of you right now with a long lens, if I were to set it at f2.8, I could control the depth of field, in other words, the range in which everything is in focus. I would focus on probably your eyes, and everything from about a foot behind you to a foot in front of you would be obliterated. It would just be all fuzzy. If I set that same lens at f22, at its smallest tiny pinhole aperture, I would have everything from, for example, this laptop here to infinity in focus. Okay, you can control that view in your picture. You've all seen photos of maybe a field of flowers, where a flower right here is just tack sharp, and yet infinity is just tack sharp as well. That's shot at with a camera, probably with a little pinhole, f22 or f32. Some cameras go up to f45. Likewise, Maybe they just picked one flower out in this 5-acre field, and just that little stem flower is in focus, and everything from that flower to infinity and everything from that flower to the camera is obliterated and out of focus. And that was done by shooting it at f2.8, at its widest aperture. Learn the physics of the camera, because you can control these three functions of the camera to really become creative. And I've given some examples here of images that were shot off of auto. Had I shot this photograph on auto, looking into the sun, the camera was going, oh, it's just too bright, it's going to close it way down. It's going to be the sunshine coming, I'm looking directly into the sun. It's just above these treetops in the background. And the camera was going to look at it and it's way too bright, and it's going to underexpose that image. By putting this photograph in manual, I was able to control that and pop these sails out so that they're just brilliantly exposed. Again, my camera's looking at this scene and it's just way, way too bright. And I had this on auto, the exposure would have been way too dark. And again, here's the human element. If that couple had not been on the dock, it's a nice picture, it's pretty, it's got some orange and some pinks and yellows, but adding that little bit of human element, that living element, just kind of hits you right here. At least it does me. Oh, I'm sorry. Here, I've used a macro lens, a lens that can get in very, very tight, and just shot some dewdrops on a spider web. Now, had I put this on auto, I would have probably gotten more of the background in focus. This photograph was shot at f2.8 at its widest aperture to keep that focus, that depth of field focus, very, very narrow. Very, very foggy morning. I was asked to go out and try to get some weather art. We call it weather art. And I drove around trying to find anything just to kind of tell the story of a very foggy day. You don't have to have a fisherman sitting on the dock. Sometimes just a couple ducks swimming by makes the picture. And again, had my camera been on auto, I wouldn't have gotten this photograph, because it was I had to kind of overexpose this picture to bring in some of the detail. Here's an example of a fall day where it was rainy and they were looking for anything colorful, the trees turning color. I just happened to come across this. It doesn't have the living element other than the leaves in it, but again, it's a very, very narrow depth of field where the background is obliterated. And your eye is immediately drawn to the drip on the leaf and the color of the leaf.
Which is, go back to that.
I'm sorry.
You zoom in on the dot, on the drop.
Can I zoom in on it?
Yeah, there you go. Because that looks like it's in focus of the background. Notice that?
Yeah.
It's
I
like
don't know if I can
a little
zoom in
lens.
or not. How do you zoom in on this?
Well, you're in PowerPoint, so you have to open up the image.
No, never mind. Yeah.
Yeah. No, in Photoshop I could do that, but this is PowerPoint. Again, it was a fall day. I was looking for something artsy. This leaf was laying on the ground with some dewdrops. And I love macro photography. There's so many beautiful things that can be created if you just look around and look for something in detail, very, very small. One cold morning, we had one of those snowfalls that you have these big giant snowflakes. It was dry, it was below zero, and it was probably 7 o'clock, 7:30, I don't know, 7:45 in the morning, and I went out And I wanted to try to tell the story of this cold, crisp day, but yet wasn't sure how to do it. Well, I decided to go macro, and I'm looking into the sun here. That is the sun in the background, and there's a little tiny snowflake. And if I'd have had this camera on auto, I would have never gotten this photograph. I had to shoot it manually because I'm looking directly into the sun. There's a lot of trees and twigs and branches and things back here that reduce that really, really bright glow of the sun to the point where it didn't injure my eye, but yet I was able to see this snowflake. Kind of told the story of a cold, cold morning. I think I ran this picture on page 1 rather large. Everybody loved this photograph. You want to also try to capture peak emotion, peak slices in time. And by doing that, you want to grab the viewer's eye in a split second. You don't want them to guess, and by golly, what's going on here? At least, especially when you're dealing with sports, for example. I mean, I don't have to have the winning goal or the winning error. It's just peak action, peak slices of time instantly tell the story. I think it was out at a water park where they have one of these big, I think they refer to it as the big bucket. This is a huge bucket, probably half the size of the diameter of this room, that tips over, and all these kids get wet on a hot summer day. Well, this is what I caught of the emotion and the peak slice. Can you see? The peak slice of time with these kids enjoying the coming deluge, if you will. Sports, we shoot a lot of sports. I shot a lot of sports as a photographer. I don't do that much anymore with video. We have other people that do that, but this happened to be a state high school playoff game where the would have been the winning run. He was tagged out at the plate. And again, a peak slice in time. Back in, what year was that? When the Tigers beat the Yankees to go to the World Series, I forget the pitcher's name, but I had access to the locker room, and this is the image that I got of the winning pitcher getting deluged with champagne. There was a coach. He's been at Waterford Our Lady of the Lakes for 37 years, and he's a legend in Oakland County. And I've known him for years and years and years, and he always has a remarkable football team. Does always very, very well until he gets into the playoffs. Well, this particular year, this is probably 4 or 5 years ago now, and longer than that, maybe 6 or 8 years ago, they won the state championship for their class, and I caught him jumping up and down at a peak slice in time. It really tells the story. Again, soccer, we all know soccer. Peak slice in time again, peak action. This was back during the day they beat the Yankees. What year was that? 2005? Does anybody remember? 2004, something like that? 5 or 6, yeah. A lot of motocross type things going on at the Silverdome now, and I just tried to illustrate a story the day before the event to get the readers involved, to get the readers interested in, oh, there's a motocross thing going on at the Silverdome. Let's go out and watch it. So this is the story, the photo that we used. I mentioned it to somebody. I'm in court a lot, and I shoot a lot of things that go on in district and circuit court. And this particular case, this woman's son was bound over to circuit court for murder. And her reaction as she was leaving the courthouse really kind of told the story. I'm sorry.
She doesn't look very happy.
No, she's very emotional right there. Family in circuit court who's, I think their son was up for murder charges. These are really difficult to shoot because, I mean, I have feelings too, and I have a heart, and I really feel for these people. I can't imagine the emotions that they're going through, knowing that their son is up for murder. And it's very difficult sometimes for me to turn the camera on and try to get off a photograph and feel, have any kind of compassion at all, but it's something that I have to deal with from time to time, and it's not easy. It really isn't. But I don't like watching someone's house burn down any more than anybody else does, but it's sometimes you got to do it. Yes, sir.
How often do you find yourself having to crop into images to get that good, rule of thirds or something like that? Do you crop into images at all normally, or?
Oh yeah. I think most of it is done in the camera, but I'm primarily interested in getting just an image. If I have to take time to zoom in and zoom out, I want to get an image first, and then I'll zoom in or crop slightly in Photoshop to kind of tighten the photograph up if I have to. But
so when
probably,
shooting, thinking about rule of thirds could be a post process too. Then,
sure.
Knowing that
Sure.
This image I took may not be the best aspect or anything, but knowing post production you can
Sure,
make
absolutely.
it what you want.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with cropping a picture. As long as you don't leave out pertinent information that's needed to tell the story. Yeah. Photoshop is wonderful. You just have to be careful. You don't want to deceive the reader. You don't want to take a photograph of you, turn your shirt white with a click of a mouse, or put a third eyeball right. You can't do that. It's ethically wrong. But I mean, cropping if I were to take this gentleman in the back and take a photo with a 200 millimeter zoom, I would crop in Photoshop slightly, just tighten it up a little bit. Yeah.
So on the same theme then, what are the sort of things that, is it sort of just like an opinion, like an experience type of deal, like do you change the saturation, the hue, things like that, or is it just sort of like, you know what I mean? Because I'm thinking of examples, like there's an example I remember seeing about, there's in some war zone there's a fire from tires, yeah? And the photographer, upped the saturation on it, and so it became really almost like opaque. And in the original photo, it was.
Was this a news photo for
Yeah,
the newspaper?
It was a newspaper.
What do you mean it was opaque?
Well, so like when he actually took the photo, the fire wasn't that bad. It was just like a few,
Okay.
whatever. But it was either the saturation or he just darkened the contrast.
Maybe the contrast a
It
little
could have
bit.
been the contrast.
Yeah, you have to be very careful. It's a very, very narrow line that you're walking.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I bump the contrast up just a little bit if it's flat. I will color correct just a little bit. If I were in this room here and shooting, I probably would get a green cast off of these fluorescent light bulbs unless I had my camera set properly for the proper white balance. But I would find a nice crisp white or adjust the colors so that the flesh tones look right. If flesh tones look right, everything else in the picture is going to look right too. You just can't ethically change you can't deceive the reader. You can't show the reader something that's not true, at least in photojournalism. Now you see it all the time in advertising. You see a car sitting on the top of a butte out in Utah. The car was probably shot in a studio here in Detroit, and somebody out in Utah took a picture of the Grand Canyon or Arches National Park or something and put the two images together. You can't even tell. They look so realistic. That you can't do, at least in photojournalism. You've all seen the president shaking the hand of an alien in national, what's that tabloid newspaper at the supermarket? See, the National Enquirer, they've done some really strange things with Photoshop. But we just can't do that. Oh, I had to shoot a hot dog eating contest, and so what better than to zoom in on somebody and get them stuff in their face without making it look too gross? That's what I came up with. I think this fellow won too, if I'm not mistaken. It's been a while. Again, I'm here. I get the human element, the living element. I've got the rule of thirds. I have access to being able to bring cameras in court. This woman's son was murdered by this fellow in the background, and everything just kind of fell together right here. She was crying. I got the prosecutor here, the assistant prosecutor. I got the attorney for the defendant. I got the mother of the dead, her son, and I've got, I forget who this guy is. Might have been another an assistant prosecutor. This is Cipriano in district court, and this is one of his early court appearances where he just looked like, you know what, he got dragged through the back alley and he was feeling it. And seeing this picture, I probably would have cropped this photo about right here. I don't need all this stuff right here. This narrow, probably would have cropped this right here. See how much better that photograph looks? There than there. You know. In all these pictures, you're trying to capture personality as well. You're trying to capture, for example, in Cipriano's face with the environment. You're capturing the emotion of the coach jumping up in the air with his, finally after 37 years he's won a state championship. You're capturing the personality in the environment. One of my favorite subjects of all time was Mr. Kevorkian, and everybody knows this guy's face. Regardless of how you feel about what he did, he always presented wonderful opportunities for photographers. And this actually was during his hunger strike in district court, and I just happened to be kneeling in the circuit court with a long lens, and he kind of glanced back, and split second I got this photo, and all the other images I have of him is from behind maybe the side of his face. I just happened to catch this picture. Again, you're capturing this guy's personality, whether you agree with him or not. He was a bizarre person. He was rather eccentric in a lot of different ways. And some people thought he was creepy. Some people thought he was, just uncomfortable to be around. And I was kind of indifferent, but I know how, I can understand, I can respect, their thoughts. And this kind of told the story one day. Excuse me. I had to get feature shots at a Pistons playoff game one time. Somebody else was shooting the action, and I was trying to find anything. And this guy happened to be all decked out in his paint and his sunglasses, and this is what I came up with. And we ran this rather large on page 1, as I recall, to support action photos that you referred to in the sports section.
For something like this, do you have to get a release for that?
He's in a public place.
You're in a public venue.
But
And I think I ended up getting his name and where he was from, and the whole thing. So.
Wait, one more question.
Yes, sir.
Even if somebody's in a public venue, though, if you use it commercially, for instance, would you then need a release?
If you're going to use it commercially, I would, you'd have to be careful with that.
So the distinction is just newspaper story and commercial, or what would be the distinction?
If you're gonna make money
When
off of it.
if I was at this game today and I shot this photograph of this guy, I'd go, hi, I'm Doug, I'm with the Oakland Press, great outfit. I'm just kind of, I'm just an easy person to get along with. I can talk with just about anybody. Yeah, you mind if I get your name? I got a great photograph of you. We'd love to maybe use it in the paper tomorrow. And by him giving his name and him knowing that I shot his photograph, that's consent in and of itself.
I think it'd be different if like you had a product you wanted to sell and you just took some random person's photo and then you created an ad with your product
Oh,
and
yeah.
that person, then
That's
that's
a
when
little
it's an
bit
issue,
different.
yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
but that's a good example. Thank you, Michelle. Oh, it was one of these hot, muggy days, trying to go out and find a feature picture, and I went to this local water park and found these kids playing in this water park. And the Oakland County Parks used this photo in one of their flyers one year. They love this photograph so much. I got this kid's name.
Well, there you really have to when they're under 18.
Yeah, I went up to his mother and I said, you know, I'm with the Oakland Press. I got this great photograph of your son under the water, and you mind if I get his name? And I mean, you just can't go, especially a 40-some-odd-year-old male, go to a water park and start shooting pictures of children. You gotta break the ice with the parents and say, you mind if I get his name? And I mean, you gotta be careful. And I would never ever shoot a photograph like this without getting permission from the parents. It's just common courtesy more than anything.
You wouldn't shoot it or you wouldn't use it?
Well, I would shoot it, but I would get permission. I wouldn't use it without permission. Maybe the kid's disabled or handicapped, and I
I
don't
think
want.
you're more strict than you need to be.
Yeah, he is, he is.
I err on the side of safety rather than, I don't.
If that child is out in public, in the water park and gets his picture taken, then you can use it.
Hypothetically, yes. Yeah, you're in a public venue.
She's an attorney, so.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah, I think that's where that distinction between like the legal aspect comes into play
Yeah,
and
yeah.
your personal ethics, I
Yeah.
guess.
I just always err on the side of safety, and I like, I mean, I respect people. If they don't want their picture used, no problem. I'll find another kid doing the same thing. It might not be exactly the same, but I'll find something there because it was a great one. This happened to be, we sponsor the regional spelling bee every year, and this happened to be a kid during the spelling bee, during one of his moments trying to figure
Let me
out a
see
word.
them. Oh
I'm
my
sorry, you
gosh.
can't see. Let me do this.
They're great pictures, I'm enjoying them.
Do you all remember the story about the lemonade girls? They opened up this little lemonade stand a couple days, and then some thugs from the inner city came in and robbed them of a couple $100. And it was a national news story. And they found out who it was, and they convicted them and put them away. But after this happened, these girls had people driving in from Ohio, from Windsor, from all over the state buying their lemonade. They made, I don't know, $20,000 over a period of a couple months, or a couple weeks, excuse me. And they donated most of it to charity. Some of it they kept, but this is one of the photos that I shot during over several days of following these girls. And it was a wonderful, wonderful story how these girls experienced this armed robbery of all that they worked for a couple of days. It was gone in a flash of a second. They were really upset about it. And the city got involved, and they said they couldn't have a lemonade stand without a permit. And I mean, everything was the perfect storm. And there was so much outcry, so much comment from the people that the city just kind of said, okay, go ahead and do what you have to do, and we'll let it go. It was a great story. And just going to the local carnival, the local fair, and trying to find a feature picture. These little girls, well, you can't pick out the duck that's right in front of you. You got to get that one far background to get. That's the winning duck. So, and of course, here again, I asked the parents, is it okay if I shoot a photo of your daughters? Well, that was fine. I forget what this was. I think we were covering a nursery that was out on a little a walk in a park or something, and it was a warm summer day, and I had to come up with a feature picture of, and I came up with this little guy blowing bubbles.
How many shots did you have to get before you got
Good
to put the
question.
bubble in front of his eye?
Well, that wasn't, it was just that was,
Yeah, that's amazing.
that was just a fortuitous moment.
Right, that was
I don't,
luck.
probably shot a half a dozen or something, I don't remember. That wasn't what made the picture for me. I mean, it helped, but it was, the colors of these bubbles and just the composition. You got one up here, you got the little thirds, it just kind of felt good. And some of the other ones didn't quite make it.
Yeah, but your eye is drawn to the one.
It is, and it was just a fortuitous moment, yeah. Oh, there was, when paintball became really big, back several years ago, we had to go to this indoor paintball thing, and this is it was a picture page that I shot, and this is one of the photos, and it tells a story instantaneously. You know exactly what's going on as soon as you see this picture. Well, I asked this guy for his name, but he wouldn't give it to me, but it was at a state high school softball playoffs, and it was starting to rain, and then the sun came out and it rained a little bit. We had this little girl's umbrella, and it's just a funny picture. It just kind of reaches out and grabs you.
Did that run in the paper as well?
What's that?
Did that run in the paper even though
Oh yeah, it did. Yeah. I wouldn't get caught dead with an umbrella like that, but the whole concept of it just was this big burly guy with an umbrella of an 8-year-old young lady that likes whoever that little character is on there.
Dora the Explorer.
Yes.
Now for the caption, since you didn't have his name, would you just, a gentleman in the crowd or
Yeah,
something like
yeah,
that?
that's it. I don't remember how I said it.
Like a spectator.
He told me where he was from, so that was enough for me to run with it. One of the softball players' fathers shading himself from the sun or from the mist or whatever, from the rain, enjoying the game. I kind of wrote around it.
You should put it up on Facebook.
Yeah. You all heard of the spare tires? This is a group of seriously overweight men that put on this thing at the Palace during halftime at the Pistons. Well, I had to illustrate this somehow without getting too grotesque, and this is what I came up with. These guys are hilarious. Just prior to them, you have the ladies out there in their dainty uniforms doing their dances and their routines, and then these guys come out and everybody's just roaring because of the contrast between the two. They're a fun group of guys. I was sent out again to do weather art. It was a spring morning, or spring afternoon, I forget what it was. And driving all over creation, probably put 40, 50 miles on the car, just trying to find anything different. And I ran across these 3 boys in the middle of the street on their skateboards. And they actually did this maneuver a couple times before I approached them, so I didn't set this up. I asked them to recreate it, but this is what I came up with. Sometimes you have to do that. You might see them flipping their skateboards in the air, and oh, that would have been a great photo. And then they do it again, and of course I'm reaching for the camera in the back, right, and I don't have the right lens on, and so then I went up to them, introduced myself, and said, could you do that again? I'd love to get a photograph of that. I work for the Oakland Press. And oh yeah, and of course by then they were like, are we going to be in the newspaper? Wow, okay, so several years ago we had a horrific ice storm up in northern Oakland. I live in northern Oakland County, and this is my road. I could not only get out of my driveway, I couldn't even get down my road. It was so bad. I shot this and a couple other pictures and emailed it to the paper, and this is what ran on page 1. Kind of told the story of the whole day. Got sort of have the rule of thirds in here. I mean, little bit of, but I got the living element. Had that person not been in that photograph, it would have been a nice picture, but by putting the living element, the human element in this, it just,
Does he have a shovel?
Or is that a
I
hockey
think he's
stick?
hauling a log or a branch or something out of the way so he could try to get out his driveway. It's been so long ago, I forget.
Looks like a hockey stick.
It does, doesn't it?
Yeah, that's a rather fat one at that. Yeah. But the only thing I wished I had, if I could have done this over, I would have asked this guy to go put out a red overcoat. That would have really made the picture.
And an Oakland Press,
And a
newspaper
baseball
box.
hat, yeah. Day I was told there was a blue heron in this river that's not too far from the paper, and I tried to go get a photograph of it. So I kind of snuck around, and I was probably from here to you, Michelle, with a fairly long lens, and this thing jumped up, and I was ready for it, and this is what I caught. And I don't know if you can see the beads of water coming off his feet, or her feet, whatever it is, but it,
Where did that shot run in the paper then? Is that something you put on the front or just wherever it fit? It just seems kind of
I don't
the
remember.
newspaper.
I don't remember.
Mhm.
I think it probably maybe ran on page 3 or something, just as a feature shot. It wasn't page 1, I don't believe, but you don't get that close to these birds. I mean, I was very, very close. I saw him or her, and I moved very, very, very slowly until I was in position. And by getting closer and closer, finally he just leaped up, and I was ready for it. All right, moving from still photography to video. Really, all of these things that we've talked about still apply. The rule of thirds, the living element, keeping the horizon straight, the proper lighting, the emotion, the peak slices in time, they all hold true with video as well. And about, I think 4, 5, 6 years ago now, the paper handed me a video camera, and now that's pretty much all what I do. The only difference is that with video, I try to, or you want to, if you're going to shoot video, try to find a unique angle to a story. And by angle, I don't mean a shooting position, although that does add interest to your video. But you want to find a unique angle, a unique part of the story that's a little bit different than the average. Keep it short. When I video a story, I don't want, we were talking about this earlier, I don't want 30, 40, 45 an hour worth of video. At least, you're a little bit different because you're doing school board meetings and that kind of thing.
Well, we keep our videos under 2 minutes on our site, but
Right.
as far as
Because the
content to pick from, yeah.
more you shoot, the more you have to upload it, and it's a 1-to-1 time ratio there. And if you got 30 minutes of video, it takes 30 minutes to load it onto the computer. I try to get right to the crux of the story. Maybe a minute and a half video, I might shoot 4 or 5 minutes, and then slice it up and put it together. Studies have shown that viewers of these videos, at least on the internet sites, will move on to something else. Their attention span is very, very short. If they're not grabbed, if they're not instantaneously attracted to whatever's going on, they'll move on, certainly within 60 seconds, if not sooner. You need to reach out and grab them right away. Use multiple sound bites. If you're doing a story on, I'll show you some examples here. You want to get sound bites from some of the key individuals in your video. And by all means, use B-roll. Does everybody understand what B-roll is? B-roll is, for example, if I would be in a lot closer to you than I am right now, doing a story, maybe you're a student at a university and you're studying for a test. I would shoot some photos of you, or a video of you at your laptop while you're doing something. Maybe a close-up of your eyes moving around while you're typing. Maybe a close-up of your hands, your fingers on the keyboard. That's B-roll. And I'll show you some examples of B-roll. And you intermix B-roll and your subject matter together to kind of tell a story. I've got several videos here. Hopefully you'll be able to hear this. This is a story of a homeless man that found a diamond ring in his hand that someone gave him as he was panhandling. Can you all hear it?
It looks like it's part of a wedding set, and it might be a good idea that the person who owns it gets it back.
The ring looks gold with some diamonds in through the middle, and it looks kind of V-shaped. And
that's B-roll.
It looks like it might be more significant personal value than actual money value. So somebody's going to really miss that ring. And I'm glad that he decided to just give it up.
He's trying to find the owner of this diamond ring. This guy's doesn't have a...
I was out with a cardboard sign, which I'll show you if you want.
See, again, I got a rule of thirds going here. I'm tight, I'm filling the frame.
Change that she had in her abstract, and the ring was included in that change. And when I was going through the change, and I seen this, I was like, my first thought was I would go pawn it, but if I go pawn it, I'm probably only going to get, $20, $50 maybe. And I know that this probably worth more to who had it than that. So I figured that's probably the best way to go, is to try and get it back to. I know, and I'll recognize her. Trust me, I'll know when I see her who she is. You gotta be pretty as a peacock. Stand with your hand back straight. Try and be as proud as you can, because there's very little pride in being the guy who holds up a cardboard sign.
Contact us here at the center stage, or they can call me on my cell phone, 248-318-0586, or they can call my building, or if they contact your newspaper, then they can, I'm sure you all will contact us. Either way, we'll get it back to the right person.
Did they ever find her?
As far as I know, they did not. The guy actually this story went viral across the country, as I recall, and he actually, one of the small businesses in Birmingham offered him a job as a dishwasher, and he worked there for a couple days, couldn't deal with society, couldn't deal with getting to work on time, somewhat presentable, bathing, that kind of stuff. And the last I heard, he left town and was headed up to Saginaw somewhere. And I think the homeless shelter, I think, still has this ring, but we never did find out who it belonged to. Yeah.
Now, were you by yourself on
No,
assignment?
I had a reporter.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I know a lot of times I'm holding the camera here.
Oh, I
to
know.
get-
I know.
Oh, pretend there's a guy, someone else holding the video, and look at me while I.
Been there and done that. It's not easy to do. Yeah, unfortunately, I had a reporter with me, so. This was one of the earliest videos. It was very early on when I started my video. And I'm looking at this now, I should have used a tripod because it's got a little jiggly there when I was close up on the ring. But there's little things that you learn as you go along. So. The paper often asks me to be on camera. I don't like that. I like being on this side of the camera. But this was a couple years ago, maybe, yeah, it was a couple years ago. It was like very, very warm January day. And what do you do for a story? You try to find a unique angle. Well, there was all kinds of people out at Carl's Golf Lane, which is a huge driving range up in Bloomfield Hills, Bloomfield Township. And so I did this quick story. I know the calendar says it's January 6th, but it's nearly 50 degrees out here, and there are golfers enjoying this beautiful weather at Carl's Golf Land in Bloomfield Township.
It's exceptional weather out here at Carl's Golf Land. We're just having some fun with the bonus weather, we like to call it. It's it's early January and we're pushing.
This is B-roll.
Today, so there's a lot of people out here and trying to knock the rust off or get their winter fix or
More B-roll.
whatever it may be. People generally aren't swinging golf at this time of the year, so it's nice to as you can see, we got some people out here behind us and hopefully this afternoon as it warms up even a little more. In the next few days we'll fill up even more. Grab a couple sticks, come on out, hit a bucket of balls at 50, 55 degree weather in January. Who'd have thought? It's kind of crazy, but we'll take it.
Oh, this is great just to get outside because typically, you're at the dome, and you're hitting about 100 yards in the dome to practice your swing and stuff. But out here you can get a better feel for what you're trying to work on. Every day in the January that there's no snow is one less day of snow that us golfers want to get back out there again. So this is great.
Oh, it's so wonderful. Although it's kind of weird that having 49 degree in January, and we're afraid maybe the Mother Nature will hit us later sometime.
I'm Doug Bauman, reporting for the... We're just trying to have some fun, have a little lighthearted moment, and that's what we came up with. That's what I came up with. This is Karen Workman. I don't know if you remember
I know
Karen.
Karen,
She heard about this story out of a school up in northern Oakland County, and we went out and did this story. It'll explain itself here. Oh. Yeah. Come on.
I'm Karen Workman for the Oakland Press, and today I'm here at Oxford's Leonard Elementary, where the students here received a surprise visit from a U.S. Customs and Border Patrol helicopter.
We do a weekly writing activity with the school where I go over the loudspeaker and I give them a prompt, and then the students have a time period to write about that prompt.
Can you all hear it okay?
So today our prompt was a helicopter landed on our playground, and the students get a minute to think about it, and then they get some time to write, and they use their imagination and come up with their story. Well, today, after we just finished our writing, we are now taking the kids out on the playground, and one of our parents here works for Homeland Security and has arranged for a military helicopter to fly in and land on our playground.
Love it when a story comes to life.
What's this button do?
What's that?
What's this button do?
Just
The helicopter landed in our school playground. Really? And what did you think about it?
It was really cool. And we saw a helicopter flying around our school and landed.
You could see the reaction from all of the kids that they were genuinely surprised with this visit. For the Oakland Press, I'm Karen Workman.
Just real short. It was less than a minute and a half, maybe a minute and 40 seconds, but a little lighthearted thing. This was a business story about this little gymnasium that actually has quite a few young gymnasts that have gone on to become near Olympic caliber gymnasts. And we did a quick story on these little tykes.
This week is our 30-year anniversary.
Doing their thing on-
business 30 years. And
on
we're
the-
having a
on
big
the gymnastic.
celebration open house this Saturday from 11 to 3 with demonstrations by our team, boys and girls. And there's going to be a radio station here with a Justin Bieber ticket drop. It's 98.7. They're going to be giving away 2 sets of 2 Justin Bieber tickets for the sold-out
was by myself on this one, so I was, you can see she's talking to me over here and the camera's over here.
Locally, regionally, and nationally.
Just a cute little feature story. The Waterford Police Department called us one afternoon. They were going to do a heard of K2, and they were going to do a bust, and we got invited along on the raid. And I had a lot of video, but I had to put this together down to 90 seconds. It was tough, but it's told the story.
Good. Hey, I'm Detective Ellen Warren. Is Mario, how are you? We're doing a K2 compliance check, and what we're doing is we're doing a program for the local businesses of Waterford to agree that they're not going to sell K2, and if you agree to that, we issue.
There's B-roll again.
You guys both need to show that you're compliant. The only way for us to issue the permit to show that you guys are compliant is for you to let us do a quick check of the building to make sure you don't have anything to our premises. Check the back room, under the cabinets and stuff like that.
What camera are you using for this?
This is a Sony video camera. I should have brought it with me. I don't have it with me. Anyway, they found all this stashed away.
What is it?
K2,
It's K2.
spice,
It's synthetic.
synthetic marijuana.
Oh, drugs.
Yeah, I'm gonna see that, and then,
Sold
what
over
I'll
the
do
counter.
is,
Anybody can walk in and buy it.
Until recently.
When it gets here. Sonic, cool, fine, thanks. Squeeze tag. This is called a tabulation. It's basically a receipt of everything we removed from the premises. Okay, here's your ID back. And then here's the citation for, the stolen possession of an illegal substance.
I'm happy as hell. I mean, it's good. I mean, they deserve. I mean, they get caught. They get caught. It's a family business. I mean, the old guy, the old guy don't sell it. The old guy don't sell it, but the younger dude, he'll sell it. I mean, they say they don't have it. All they did was took off the packaging off the glass. That's all they did.
You seem to know a lot about this.
Yeah.
You heard about the young boys, I forget their name, just less than a year ago, killed some of their family members with, they were on K2. What's their name? Do you recall that? In Oakland
But it's
County.
out your way, yeah.
Yeah, it's nasty stuff.
How did you get the kids to talk on video, or they didn't mind?
They just happened to be cutting through, there's a high school right across the street from this gas station convenience store.
Mm-hmm.
And we had heard that they were selling this surreptitiously. Well, before that, they were selling it to anybody who walked in. There was no law, everybody was rather ignorant about it all. And we heard that they were selling it to high school and young students. And we got involved with the police, and they invited us in on this raid. And they just happened to be cutting through, and we asked to stop them and say, "Hey, can you comment on this?" And of course, they just loved it.
I'm anticipating a big day tomorrow.
There's a story on Punchki Day.
The line will probably start about 5:30, 6 o'clock, and it'll be all day long out there.
We basically hand cut.
Found a local
Basically,
donut shop in the
out
area
the
that we
door.
went to.
I mean, in the morning and throughout the day. So hopefully we have another good day turnout. You know.
Here's one of the times where I had to shoot video and still. Remember the still photo that I
Filling
showed
with
you
the
earlier?
custard right here.
I just had custard
nation, the center of the universe. Can't get me better.
This story, I don't know if you recall this family, the Waterford Police Department responded to this home for some domestic problem of some sort. And they happened to notice this dog in the background with his leg all infected, seriously infected. And the police officer told the family that this dog needs some attention, or it could be fatal. Well, several weeks later, as I recall, the police were summoned back to the same home for another domestic dispute of some sort. The dog was even worse. The leg had become seriously infected to the point where they took the dog. They were so worried about the dog's health. Well, it broke into this big story. Really, I think this went nationally too. And boy, this story got a lot of hits. Any photo or video with animals in it just seems to hit everybody's heart. And this particular story was about Marley. And well, the video and the story says
Marley's doing great. He had his leg amputated late Saturday night, and he's in recovery now. In about 2 to 3 weeks, he'll be ready to find himself at home. He's a really sweet dog, very gentle. It doesn't even bother him that his leg is gone. Of course, he hasn't used it in a long time, I don't think, anyway. But he's a really nice dog, really sweet. Investigation on Marley's owner is underway, and we should know something very soon in the next couple weeks.
Well, a story like this always has a very happy ending, and this is what resulted out of it. L. Brooks Patterson's daughter took the dog home. This is a couple of months later, I believe. Everybody knows who L. Brooks Patterson is? Okay. They've never had a dog before, and when they get early.
We'll bring a lot of excitement to the house when the kids go home to school today, and you can see, really energetic.
Did you show this on News at Noon? Because it looks familiar to me. Okay.
Was hanging on for dear life. This dog is very, very strong.
We're just excited. It's our first family dog, and my older
This is
kids
Brooks'
are
daughter.
so excited.
They're what, 6?
They're 5 and 4. 5 and 4. They're just so excited. Yeah. Well, I wasn't planning on adopting a dog. It was his idea. And so it took a little convincing and to my husband, but once my 5-year-old heard him talking at dinner, that was it. She wanted the dog, and I couldn't kind of go back after that.
We're going to split the ownership. I get the bills and they get the puppy.
Yep.
That's how it works.
Yeah, we're co-parenting.
So, I want to know how this dog arches territory. No falling over.
Good. I never thought of that angle. That's a very good.
That's your B-roll right
That's
there.
Yeah, that's a very good point.
It's one thing if you have a hind leg
Maybe
that's
he
missing, but if
squats
you have
now or something.
front leg missing, you're in trouble with your dog, your male dog.
Y'all remember the West Bloomfield police officer that was shot here a month or so ago by a fellow, and I had to do the funeral. Actually, I did. I was one of the first people on the scene that morning. I did. Of course, the press was removed from the scene because there was a lot of gunshots, and I videotaped that. I videotaped neighbors the next day. We did a lot on this story, and then this Friday I had to go up to the funeral, And this is what I came up with. The unique part about this video is there's no one says a thing. And after I got started with this video, I kind of thought that, you know what, this might be a unique way to tell this story. It has such presence. There's so much behind this story. Anybody that lives in the area knows what happened, and there's no need for any communication. There's no need for anyone to talk. And you'll see what I mean. It's just a rare incidence where you don't need audio of someone talking. Oh, I'm sorry. This is B-roll. This is the officer's wife. I just happened to catch her for a second. Yes, sir.
Hi, two quick questions.
Yeah.
Are you using Final Cut or do you just use iMovie or what do you use to put your videos together?
I use Final Cut.
Okay. And the other question, you mentioned you use stills briefly before as B-roll. Is that what you mentioned earlier, just a photo as B-roll or something?
Well, you can use stills as B-roll.
With the Punchki story, I thought you mentioned something about...
He took some stills.
Oh,
at the same time he was taking video.
I have two.
Okay.
We were joking about this earlier. I had a colleague one time. He says, "What's the problem? You have two hands. You can't shoot."
Okay.
But we were joking about that. No, this particular Punchki story, I shot video, and I had a still camera along to illustrate it as well. So. Yeah.
But some cameras you can take a still while you're taking a video.
Probably can. Yeah.
I do that quite a bit with my equipment, but you get the shutter noise in the video. So if you're using that audio, it's very difficult.
Speaking of audio, are you just using the camera's audio for most of this? You don't have a separate mic a lot of times, or do you use that
a lot of
camera?
times I do. I'll use a lavalier, but probably less than 25% of the time I use the lavalier. I'm in tight.
Wireless?
Yeah. More often than not, I'm in tight enough within 3 feet of someone talking. The audio is just fine. If I were to do a meeting or a school board meeting or something, I'd probably put a lavalier up where the speaker stands, or maybe there's one main person that's talking without ambient, without a sound system, and I'll put a lavalier in them as well.
Do you, do any live video?
Live stream, we do live stream, yes.
What do you use to do that?
Well, my Sony camera, laptop, and what's the software?
We use Ustream. That's what we're doing
yes,
right
thank
now.
you.
Like
Ustream.
we're just using the built-in camera on this. And
It's a free
Yeah,
internet-based.
that's what I use.
Every now and then a story comes along that, there's just no words to describe it. We were sitting in the news meeting at 8:30 one morning. It's going to be over 100 degrees, and we need to get a story. How do we illustrate a day that's hotter than blazes without, okay, you go to the local ice cream parlor, you go to the local swimming hole or the water park, been there and done that hundreds of times anyway. Someone mentioned, well, let's go to the nudist colony. And I'd always heard that there was a nudist colony up in, it's just north of Oakland County, just barely over the county line. And I thought, well, be a little unique. So I got assigned this assignment where we're going to go talk to some nudists in a nudist colony on a day that's over 100 degrees. Well, if that isn't weird enough, the reporter that I had that went with me it was the age of my daughter, and to make things, well, not to make things worse, she's jaw-dropping beautiful, and getting married in 2 weeks from this date. So we tried to make this lighthearted and still keep it for the family newspaper, and try to tell the story about it being so god-awful hot that these people enjoy running around the way they do. So this is the video that I came up with.
It's going to be 103 degrees today, and I'm roasting. The reason I'm wearing my official uniform is because you are here, and that's the only reason. Otherwise, I'd be naked. It's a lot cooler when you're not wearing clothes. The idea is life is short. Play naked. Swimming pool. The pool is great, and you don't wear clothes. We always wonder what people who have to wear clothes do on days like today.
Especially when it's so hot, and it's just great not having to have something on and being able to be naked, and it's just
Doug, I remember this was shared on our website as well, and we had people say that they weren't going to share another video link on Facebook or with people because it rolled into that video. You know how the player will keep playing different videos? Because, yeah.
being naked is one of the most natural things there is, and not having to have a bra on like women have to wear when they're out in public, and just being able to be free and with nothing on is the way to go.
Believe it or not, we didn't get any people complaining about it. So we just tried to keep it lighthearted.
Was that from June?
And have some fun.
Was that this June?
Yeah, it was.
The video Michelle's talking about, my first video with the company, I went to a marine burial and did a video on a marine burial. And the next video was this, and the screenshot was their butts. So the granddaughter of the Marine, the Marine was from World War II. They found his remains and they gave him burial. She emailed us and said, I want to put this on my website that I have, but it keeps, showing this butt picture right after. Is there something, luckily it was an easy HTML fix, but it was, for my first video ever with the company, it's like, some dude's butt keeps popping up after this. It was pretty fun.
Well, we had fun with it, and true story.
I noticed there wasn't a whole lot of B-roll on that.
Well, trust me when I tell you, it wasn't pretty. So it was uncomfortable. It wasn't a comfortable situation to be in, because I just not my cup of tea, and I'm with a young lady that's my daughter's age, and it's just the whole thing. True story. This woman, this reporter that was with me, was on a 1-month internship from a local high school. She's a journalism teacher, and I think this was one of her first assignments, and so she got thrust right into the middle of, of journalism, as you will. And of course, the following days, we were all kind of mocked and not ridiculed, but made fun at. And what else did you see? What did you put? The conversations went on and on and on and on, and we had fun with it. Well, it was a week or so later. I got a phone call. I'm editing, and I got a phone call, and it was from her father. And I'm thinking to myself, oh boy, what, do I need to call an attorney right now, or what's going on here? And he says, I want a favor from you. I'm hoping you can help me out. And of course, I was instantly relieved that I wasn't in trouble with him. Well, he wanted a copy of this video so that he could play it at their wedding reception. And I said, oh, by all means, don't tell anybody about it. Just keep it to yourself. And so I sent him a copy, and I would have loved to have been a fly on the wall at that wedding reception and seen her face, because it was, I'm sure, just as uncomfortable for her as it was me. But we tried to have fun with it. So that's all I have. I hope you enjoyed it.
So how much
I
time?
have a quick question for you.
Yes.
In terms of the delivery codecs that's used for the videos.
Say that again?
The delivery codecs.
I'm not hearing you right.
The format that you use to when it's all done, is it H.264 because it's online, or which one do you find works best?
I'm not understanding your question.
So is it like you shoot the video? I don't know what the Sony camcorder you're using, what the native format is, and then I'm guessing you edit in ProRes and then output it. So what do you, like for newspapers, for your sort of what do they usually?
Sorry,
we're going through Syndicaster. Syndicaster. We upload, we edit the video in Final Cut, or I edit the video in Final Cut. Some people use iMovie. Most everybody uses iMovie, but I use Final Cut. And then I load it to Syndicaster. Syndicaster puts it in clip video, and then we go through Town News to get it posted.
So
Is
it
that
does
what you
all
mean?
so that does all the formatting. I think it's all
Just
in that system.
And then for the photos, are they just JPEGs?
Yeah.
And is that, do you shoot raw in the JPEGs or just
I shoot, no, very, very rarely will I shoot raw. The files are too enormous, and you're printing on a sponge. It's not like you need National Geographic resolution.
So that was another thing I was wondering about. If there, in terms of like newspaper specific considerations, so it sounds like it's like overkill to worry about it.
Yeah, you're printing on a sponge. I mean, I'm being facetious, but
Yeah.
newspaper print is just it's not high quality stuff like some photo books or.
Well, and even for online, we have to scale down our resolution quite a bit. Because it takes so long to load on a web page, it's too high of a resolution.
I mean, even my camera, I think I have 3 or 4 options for JPEG. I have large, medium, and small, and I usually keep it at either small or medium, and then I have another option for, I think it's a compression option. I keep it at small. There's no reason for, unless I'm shooting something that I want to make a great big print of or something one day, I'll just keep it at smallest resolution. You had a question?
Yeah, I was going to ask you in terms of editing time. So let's say you shoot half-hour video.
Very rarely.
Raw
Probably
video.
less than 6
A raw video,
Mhm.
you might
6
have
or
a
8
half
minutes.
hour, and you want to boil it down for like 2
Okay.
minutes.
Yeah.
So how long does it take to
tough.
do that?
It's tough. Typically, my videos are between 6 and 8 minutes, maybe 10 minutes of raw video, and it'll take me maybe an hour.
What?
so short. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Why, what's it take you?
Oh. But then again, what we talked before, I shoot a lot more video. You know, I'm still a little bit newer at it. I feel like I sit there for 3 hours.
See,
clicking.
Well, my rule of thumb is 3 times. But I do live events, and occasionally I have to edit afterward, and it kills me because then I have to watch it, first you gotta upload it,
Yeah.
then you gotta watch it 2 times, and you gotta edit it, and you gotta watch it again, so
Wow.
it's 3 or 4 times, whatever the time is, you did.
I would love to be able to get down to 1 hour.
While I'm at a scene or I'm at a news event or whatever, I'm kind of formalizing in my head, okay, this is my beginning, my middle, and my end. In your videos, you want to tell a story. You want to have a beginning.
Yeah, when you're doing a story.
You want to have a middle, and you want to have an end. And I kind of have that kind of loosely worked out in my head. And then when I get back and load everything on Final Cut, I'll just go through and take out all the crap. Just take all the stuff I know I don't need it. I got 3 or 4 sound bites. I want to keep those. I got a scene. I've got peak action, peak this, and then I'll put them together. And usually within an hour, hour and a half. I did a man on the street this morning. I was up at up in Clarkston at 7:45, talking to people in a coffee shop about what they thought about the debate last night. And I got back to the office by 8:30, 8:40, and I had that video up by 9:30. And it was ready for the noon news broadcast today. So that was the plan. I needed 5 or 6 people to talk about their impressions of the debate. I don't care who won. I don't care if you're going to vote for Mickey Mouse or Donald Duck. What was your thoughts? And just, 10, 15, 20-second sound bites. I put 5 of them together, got their name, where they're from, and put it up on the internet.
Now, have you ever had to do that or any type of photos remotely or mobile and turn them in?
Say
Like
that
from
again?
the scene somewhere? Have you ever had to put a video together or put a slideshow together or something remotely from the
I
scene?
have, yeah, it's rare, but I could, yeah. This is if I have my laptop with me and high-speed internet. I mean, I have Final Cut on this computer, and I can do whatever. But probably 98% of the time I go back to the office.
Where's your office?
Downtown Pontiac.
And where do you live, near there?
I live about 18 miles north of there. I'm on the
You came
northern.
in for this today.
Yeah, I'm halfway to the Keys right now. I'm just teasing.
Part of the reason I ask is because I shoot a lot of event video. I probably got 7 terabytes
Wow.
of video. Just sitting there.
At least with newspaper, these little quick internet things, you want to keep these stories 60
Oh, yeah,
to 90
yeah.
seconds.
Well,
because
that's it,
they'll move on.
I wanna be, make, little clips to, interest in them, people can try to see what I say. But I probably have how many here are interested in video? Because I have, probably 3 dozen names of people, thinking about starting a meetup about anything to do with video. There are a lot of meetups on different tech things here in Dipsey and Ann Arbor, and I think I'm gonna start one about video.
Well,
So I was asking you how far away, whether you want to drop in sometime.
Yeah.
Share ideas.
The only time I ever get down this way is to go to a game with any weather.
Right.
Maybe.
Well, what undoubtedly will be live streaming this.
I didn't mean to go on, Doug. How did you? Thank you for coming. Nice to see you.
So
Any other
those of
questions?
you that are interested, give me your card or something, I'll add you to the list of
Go ahead.
potential.
Now for that Sony camcorder you were talking about you were using, does that record to a DVD or to a hard drive or a card or?
It's a 6-year-old technology. It's to a tape.
Oh,
Mini
really?
DV.
Yep. Little mini DV. Yep.
That's what I use.
DV tape.
What size tape?
They're
They're
45. They're about this big. They're 45 minutes.
Oh, I mean, like there's 8 millimeter and
So it's called EV.
Mini DV, it's smaller than 8 millimeter.
Yeah, much smaller. Yeah. And you can shoot HD on this camera. It's wonderful. I mean, they have that option. I don't use it. Oh, I don't. Sony. Give me your card. I'll give you
I have a Canon HV40 that's equivalent program to this. shoots both.
This is old technology, they don't even make these cameras anymore.
So you got a firewire, right?
Yeah. You have a question?
Yeah, I was just wondering about your post workflow for photos. So you take photos, you go back, and then how do you use Lightroom and then go from there to Photoshop and then email the ones to the editor, or how does it?
Typically what I do, I will bring it up on a contact sheet, pick out 2 or 3 images. If it's not a photo story, 2, at the most 3. Run it through Photoshop, and we have an import folder that goes into an archive that everybody has access to.
At the open press.
At the open press, right. And then anybody that knows how to access that archive can drag that photo out of it, including obviously the copy desk drags it from there onto the page.
Is there a specific aspect ratio that you have to conform to?
No, 200 DPI at 10 inches. Whether it's 10 inches wide or 10 inches tall, that's what we use. I mean, again, you don't need a 300 DPI photo for printing on a sponge. Yeah. That's what we've been doing for as long as I can remember, ever since we've started using Photoshop. This is 200 DPI at 10 inches. Now, if it's a mugshot of a candidate or something, I might have it 200 DPI at 7 inches. You know, make a 5x7 out of it. There's no reason to use up storage space for a mugshot. Yes, ma'am.
Did you say 60 to 80 seconds for a video online? 'Cause
Yeah, I think 60 to 90. Yeah. You get over 90 seconds. You get over, if the reader isn't instantly grabbed onto it, they're going to move on.
Right.
So you want to keep them interested. And studies have shown that after about 60 to 90 seconds, they'll move on if they're not interested.
Thank you.
For the news thing, she wasn't on camera and she didn't do a voiceover, so was she just there for the print story, or?
For the news colony,
Yeah.
she did a print story. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. We were going to include her as a reporter on the scene because she's an intern, and she, quite frankly, she didn't want to be on camera. So she's a natural, but she just, for this story, I think.
For any story or for that story?
For that story. Again, I can't imagine what's going to happen if one of her students finds out she was at this story. It would have been an interesting day in the classroom. Maybe she told everybody, I don't know. It was a weird day.
The one where you were, the very first video, or was your second where you were on camera?
Yeah.
Was the camera on a tripod
It
or
was.
somebody shooting you?
It was on a tripod.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Yep, I probably did 3 or 4 takes. I'm one of these and I get names all mixed up and I'll stumble and I'm better at this side of the camera than that side. And I had 4 or 5 takes where I finally got it right and spit the words out correctly.
I have a question about the dog with 3 legs.
Yeah.
Its first owner was ever prosecuted?
Yes, they were.
Oh,
Animal cruelty, yep. Yep. And I believe, I'm trying to remember what their sentence was. I don't remember.
Well, that's okay, just wanted to know if they were prosecuted.
I believe they were, yeah. I'm pretty sure. Yeah. Yes, sir.
When you're out, like shooting kids or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
are you wearing something like that immediately suggests you're a reporter?
No. Yes and no. I do have several shirts that say open press on it. But when I'm at a park, or if I know I'm going to be doing something like that, I'll hang identification on my neck and immediately introduce myself to someone if it's a situation where it might draw attention. Who's this guy over there taking pictures of my kids? What's this guy doing? I just want to be up front. I don't want to, unless I'm out trying to get a photo of a defendant that's still running around in the streets. I'm going to be as open as I possibly can about who I am. I'm not Dan Rather trying to do a 60-minute story on somebody. questions? Oh, good. Well, I enjoyed this, thank you. I had no idea what this is like. Thank you, Michelle.